Mr. Brittain,
Here.
Mr. Cox,
Here.
Mr. Fishman,
Here.
Mr. Ramsey,
Here.
Mr. Shipley, and Mr. Gray is a guest. He's not on the executive committee.
Okay.
Oh, and Mr. Chesney, I'm sorry.
Yeah, his comment had kicked in
Yeah.
anyway, so.
This-
This coffee knocked me off the roll.
One or the other.
Okay. We have unanimous crowd present. You have before you the summary of a meeting that we held on March 1st. Any comments about that or any corrections that we need to make on March 1st minutes?
Move to approve. Second.
Brittain moved it to be approved as presented, and there's a second, Mayor Chesney. All those, let it know by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The motion's carried. Okay, we'll go to the reports from the city.
I started making notes last night, and I thought it'd be brief, but I tend to get long-winded late in the afternoon. So several things kind of kicking off the spring and summer season this weekend. First, on Friday, we celebrated being a Tree City for the 19th time with Arbor Day. We did that in Fulton Hill Park. The mayor was there and accepted the dedication of 22 legacy trees from the family of Judson Hill, for whom the park is named. All in all, it was a good day. We recognized for Tree City, Growth Award, meaning going above and beyond the standards, and Power Line Award for MUS for their maintenance of trees in the power line. So it's a long-standing tradition in the community, and certainly is a good thing for Morristown. At Walter State, the RAM event for folks with healthcare needs, low income, I think was overall a good event from what I heard, both Saturday and Sunday. And then the chamber was really trying to get us cranked up in terms of getting things going this weekend. They opened the farmers market on Saturday, as well as having the Sky Mart Festival downtown. And then to top that off, they were also involved in a bike race at Panther Creek State Park. So a lot of things were going on this weekend, particularly Saturday. To maintain the momentum, they've got the first concert on the downtown green will be this Friday. So again, a lot of activities, a lot of things going on. We are scheduled to have the first in a while chamber breakfast hosted at our new Public Works facility. That'll be on Tuesday, May 25th at 8 a.m. We will offer opportunities to look at our new facility that we're very proud of, as well as hopefully get the chamber back on a more regular footing of being able to do some of those events. So
What time?
at 8 o'clock in the morning. In terms of projects, we've got a number of things going on. The Fulton Hill Park, if you've driven by on Cumberland, you've noticed that the wall that failed has been removed. We're sloping back the bank. That project is about 75% complete. We still have to install the sidewalks and get it seated, but you can already get a feel for how things are going to look. Moving up the road to Cumberland at the railroad track, we're about 35% on that project. It seems like it has taken forever. Working with the railroad is a challenge, to say the least, but we are doing well in terms of being able to improve that drainage area. The stormwater there will be improved, and the ever additional leaning crossbuck there at the railroad will eventually be stabilized and turned to an upright condition. We're a little concerned that one of our remaining projects that we have to do is out here on West Main. We're waiting on approval from the railroad, which I'm assuming is going to take some additional time, but that project is in the wings as well. TDOT is being very, very active in our community right now. You know, they've got a pair of projects working around both entrances to our main industrial park. Putting a traffic signal on the end at West AJ and J turns on the end at 160. And they've rerouted traffic. It's not being completed, makes things a little congested right now, but it is, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, but right now it's a bit of a challenge. If you go down 160, TDOT is prepared and should be this month resurfacing that section from West AJ all the way back to 66. So that entire end of the corridor will look much, much better. In terms of some projects that TDOT has that I think this group may be interested in, the improvements at 25E and Progress Parkway into the East Tennessee Progress Center. They are going to start right-of-way acquisition in August. Their plans are to bid summer of '22. So it is moving, but as with all things, TDOT moving at a deliberate pace. The project to add a second left turn lane from West AJ onto Merchants Green will move into the right-of-way phase late this year and should be bid early 2023. So again, moving slowly. And the highlight, of course, of moving slowly in TDOT is 11E on the east end, moving toward Greene County. The latest report is that more than half of the parcels that they need to acquire for our phase of the project have been acquired. But we are now waiting for the status of the next 3-year plan from TDOT to find out where their funding is and what phase they will be able to fund moving forward. We're hopeful that our end will move into the design phase and be able to get that get past the right-of-way and into actually drawing and bidding, but we do not yet know until the TDOT and the legislature finalizes funding. On city projects, if you look at the community center, Morristown Landing, we're making progress above and below ground. Walls are beginning to go up, and we are working on the mechanical systems for the swimming pool. So we're working above and below grade, and both are moving well. We're very pleased with the rate of progress and hopefully we can maintain that. Finally, this is the season where I spend a lot of time, a lot of my waking hours working on the city's budget. It's going well. I will make that presentation to council and they'll begin to tear it apart on May 14. We are more than a little disappointed that the late moves in the state legislature reduced the governor's proposed allocation to localities by 50%. That was money we were going to use to pave, and it's a direct cut from the legislature on what we'll be able to do in terms of paving our local streets. They hit both cities and counties. They cut the amount in half. I understand and do not yet have details, but I understand they also had a significant cut in the funding for TCAT construction. I'm not sure how and if that impacts our projects and the aspirations of TCAT. But the conference committee between Senate and House Finance did not do us any favors with regard to amendments to the governor's budget. We'll make our presentation for the city budget here in a couple of weeks, and hopefully things will be looking up in the future. So that's my report for this morning.
Tony, let me ask you this question. If I might, couple things. On 11E, you say they're 50% of the right of way. Explain, if you can, why does it take so long to get that? They've been working on it for 2 years.
They go through and they take so long that things they have done, they expire and they had to go back and do them again. Right now, they're trying to negotiate with property owners, get that right of way done. That's the next big hurdle we got to get over. And we've got to get the state to make sure it's in the 3-year plan. If it's not in the 3-year plan, nothing happens. I believe, based on feedback from Region 1, that our end will go into the final design and bid phase in the next 3-year plan, but nobody makes promises until the legislature passes it and the governor and TDOT sign off. So, but it is frustrating. It is very taking a very long time, and they won't even talk to you about the 3rd phase on the end toward closest to Greene County, when that one will even be moving into the early phases.
Now, are you talking about phase 1?
Phase 1.
Phase 1, okay.
Phase 1 goes from about, fire department to, through Bulls Gap, and I mean through, to go through Bulls Gap.
No,
Yeah.
phase 1 only goes Stagecoach.
Warrensburg.
What's the what?
Stage, yeah. Right there at the industrial park, what road is it?
Warrensburg.
Warrensburg.
And you said, you mentioned something about TCAT. I got an email, Thursday or Friday, that, there were 2 things greatly affecting our TCAT. That there is $3.5 million in the budget for equipment for the building, and also in that budget, the money to acquire what I call the old Mason-Dixon terminal, was in the budget last year, and then they taken it out, and then it was put in that big TCAT pot that you're talking about. But then they passed a special part for $1 million to proceed with that acquisition. And that was Thursday. I got the email as soon as the bill was passed. Now, that's good news if that sticks and the governor signs it, and our representatives thought that it would. You heard anything different?
No, what has been passed by the legislature just shows one big line for all those TCAT projects without any detail. So I'm not sure what's in, what's out, and I wasn't aware if there was a separate bill. I didn't see that, but that would be very good news.
Well, that's the email I got now.
Well, they ought to know better than us.
Any other questions for Tony? Okay, anything to add, Mayor?
No, Tony hit most of all the things we're doing. I guess what I'm seeing from my end is we come out of a kind of a dark pandemic year. It's almost the pent-up energy of outdoor summer, spring activities is really bursting, and it's almost like Christmas morning for participants. And I judge that by the calls and suggestions are rolling in for all of the athletic programs and the Little League teams, and just ahead of the complaints that'll come by umpires missing the call that cost them the game. You know, I get those kind of calls too, but it's just folks are eager to get going, and the usual calls are rolling in, which indicates people are eager to get going and participation will be good. I don't know if it's been publicized too much, but Fulton Hill Park is going to become a kind of a go-to place for activities. East High's having their prom at Fulton Hill Park in a couple of weeks, maybe this weekend, I'm not sure when that is. Which we thought, now, that takes some serious planning, but that's getting ready to happen. And I just think people coming out of a kind of a dark year, I think activity is really going to be blossoming. So.
Thank you. Bill?
First, let's start just with a COVID update. As of Friday, active cases we had were 97. It's been pretty stable over the last several weeks. Let's see, as far as vaccinations, we have at least 27% of the population with that have been vaccinated, whether one dose or two. We're seeing a smaller number of individuals being vaccinated, and hospitalizations are stable. They ticked up a little bit from when it bottomed out a couple of weeks ago, but the observation that the task force was given was that the hospitalizations are in the 25 to 55 age group, not the older folks. So,
Just for the record, is there anything that, that's not, I don't think that's good. Jack doesn't, and I'm sure you don't. If all of a sudden the next wave of we're not vaccinated comes along, we'll be back to where we were last year. Is there anything that can be done to emphasize to the folks that that's important? Are they scared of the vaccine? Are they just don't want to get the shot?
Yeah, the task force, I think the message we heard was just a lot of unknowns because the vaccine, a lot of I won't say misinformation, but folks who don't have enough information about it, just reluctance because it's something new. The vaccine is something new.
You say they don't have enough information. Does that mean they're scared of the vaccine?
Mm-hmm.
They tend to get their information from Facebook instead of CDC. They tend to get their information from Facebook and friends instead of official sources that know about it. Seems to hurt.
I think it would be helpful if we made a push with our first responders, police and fire to do public vaccination to convince them to do it, because those are the ones that are very low percentage of participation. There's a national news story this morning about nationwide about the low vaccination rates in police departments. Not just here, it's nationwide. And the story goes into depth about some of the reasons for that, but listening to that task force conversation that we had last week, I think that would have a very strong impact if we can convince the police and fire chief and the EMS guy to motivate their guys. Let's do a video, publicized, newspaper photographers, like, hey, look, these guys are getting their vaccines. That will have a tremendous impact, but I think we'd have a tough time selling that, but it'll take something like that to get our percentages where they need to be. And if we can't do that, then we're just gonna kind of piddle along and hope for the best.
Is that the same, the sheriff's department? Well, you know, the only thing that I can say to you two gentlemen is, and Tony, what do you think it would be any value if we could get the police chief and the sheriff and the fire chief together to explain that? And if they would emphasize it, you make sure you get all the publicity that you need about it.
I think that'd have a huge impact, but I don't know if that's a goal that's just unattainable or not. Others, what do you think? You shame them into it or what? I don't know.
In our public safety areas, there's a lot of resistance. I'd say we have 15% maybe.
Sheriff,
I mean, I look at who lined up first. the most educated people in the room, the doctors. They had the information, they knew, and they were lining up to take it. They had no problem taking it. And then as you go down the line, just the misinformation and people that didn't have the information, just, there's so many questions. But the doctors and nurses, the ones that are most educated in the topic, lined up together. So that tells me that.
What can we do, gentlemen, what can we do to get that information to the heads, leaders of that department? That seems to be the problem. You agree, Gary?
Well, I think they get the information, they're just not buying it.
Huh?
They're just not buying the information. I think it's and this story goes into that, I think it's the post-Donald Trump loyalty test as part of that. And that's just the low information crowd's what that is. It's, I don't know how you deal with that other than.
Well, we're gonna continue distributing information about the vaccines and keep that information out in the public eye.
Would it help to have an on-site vaccination clinic
The
at
health
the sheriff
department,
department and the
the
police
health
department?
department's working with business and industry and have talked to us about doing that. Yeah, that's gonna be their next, instead of waiting for folks to come to them, they're gonna start going out in the community.
And if we do the flu shot that way, so,
Yeah.
then, okay.
Yeah, one of the things, we kicked around that idea at a staff meeting last week, and as Gary indicated, the low take rate in police and fire, but they indicated those that are willing to get the shot had already got it, and that having an on-site event probably wouldn't generate a whole lot of people lining up to get the vaccine. So there's overcoming that resistance is gonna be hard.
Getting our highways to China paved is hard too. I understand that. What do you think we might do? You say get out the information by the doctors. Well, you know, we can put it on the radio and we can put it in the paper. That's not a problem. But obviously, as Gary says, there's the resistance politically from A administration to B administration. And what I'm asking you is there any way that but when you say we're 25% and the rest of the nation is 55 or 60%, that should be, it is, I know, a bother to us. And can the chamber help, or the papers help, the radio help? And you say one of the suggestions was to have a on-site vaccination, which the task force could arrange, say at the police department or at the sheriff's department. But you say those that would do it are already vaccinated, so that's not gonna help unless you can change that attitude before you got there. I just think it's a problem when our county has so few vaccinated. And what we said here at the beginning of the meeting is things are beginning to pick up. You got the scoop, you got the health, you got the downtown stuff, you got Fulton Park. That's been all shut down. And now it's opening up again. Well, I'm asking the question, is there anything that you guys can think of that we can orchestrate either through the chamber or through the government to make sure that that shutdown doesn't happen again. Yeah, I heard on the radio coming in here this morning that they're terribly concerned in some places about schools not reopening. And that basically if we don't get something done about that we're gonna have a whole, now we don't have that, seem to have that problem here, but America is gonna have a whole problem of what they called on the radio a lost generation. And that wouldn't be good. And they didn't have any answers, but, well, they did have an answer there. Their answer was for Biden to tell the teachers union that we're going back to school, and go back to school. But again, that makes it a political issue. And
Let me go back to the subject we just talked about. I just got a text here from Senator Southerland that says the governor's new budget has $3,630,000 in it for equipment at the new TCAT and $1 million for the purchase of the property next door and to do some repairs on that property. So all of that was retained. So say thanks to Steve when you get a chance.
yeah, that's good news. I don't want to delay the subject, but is there any other suggestions that you might have to try to educate the people?
Just keep it out there. I mean, that's, I think, what we came away with, the task force meeting, was just keep the information out there, keep opportunities to be vaccinated out there. I looked up on the state website, statewide, the number of people with at least one dose is 35%, and ours is at 27. And then with 2 doses fully vaccinated, the state is at 26.5, and we're at 21. So that's how we compare to states.
BAD. Okay, I don't want to delay the subject, but if anyone has got any suggestions, certainly, I'm sure Marshall would be glad to try to exercise any effort that he can through the chamber, and if we can do anything in the radio or television, let me know. I'm glad to do it, because I think that if we don't change those numbers, we're flirting with another situation. I interrupted your report.
Okay.
Did you have something else?
I'm done on that part of it. Let's see, except for the governor last week modified his state of emergency, lifted the Tennessee pledge, which was the restrictions on business, lifted the authority for county mayors to implement a mask mandate, so those are gone, and then lifted the electronic meetings authorization as well, so and those were all lifted. Second item is Justice Center project. Bids came in substantially over budget, so the commission rejected the bids, and we're in discussions with the contractors, our project manager, the architects, about modification of the design, keep as much of the scope as possible. Budget hearings, just like the city, and Tony and Gary and their crew. We begin our hearings on May the 18th, and we're also waiting for advice from the federal government about what we can use the American Rescue Funds for. And then, like Tony said, the state budget includes less for the local government grants, which there's no strings attached, but there's less money. So, and then finally, just kind of in step with what Gary was saying about more outdoor activities. We are planning, our Independence Day celebration at Cherokee Park. It'll be on July the 3rd, on a Saturday night at Cherokee Park. And then the state disc golf tournament, citywide, will be the first weekend of June. And I think it's got a waiting list for participants that's full. And Gary, in our conversation with the East Tennessee leadership folks, they were well aware of disc golf.
Good.
So, and
Anything else,
it's Marshtown destination.
Marshall?
So like, Bill and Tony had said, some of the state money, being cut back. I joke, I think we kind of continue to get cut, but we're paying for a stadium in Knoxville, so it's okay. So the state has allotted the state option sales tax within a quarter mile of the new stadium site to stay in Knoxville. So, that's tax money that don't come into state coffers that get distributed to everybody, that stay there. So along with Sevier County, Cobb County, all your rural counties, we're the only county basically that doesn't have a deal with the state to keep the state option sales tax on special projects. So next year I will work with Eldridge and Southerland, and we will write something that we will keep local or state option sales tax for regional economic development, workforce development, something we need. Because if, the region can commit to building a baseball stadium, we should commit to funding jobs. So, in Newport, if you do a TIF deal, all the tax from city, county, and state stay in that deal. You don't send the 7.5% to the state, it all stays right there. And now within a quarter mile of the new stadium site in Knoxville, all the sales tax money, state option and local option, go to the funding of that facility. So I think we've paid everybody else's way long enough. It's time for us to start asking. So maybe that's why we're cutting half this year. Maybe that's why we're cutting half this year. We're paying everybody else's way. So now, I'm done being greedy. Lot 12, stabilization and seating's looking really good. We got to drive up on the site last week and take a look at that, so that's nice. I think I talked to Joey and he said there's some final cleanup where there's a few bare spots, but that site's looking really, really good. We do have the new drone footage from TVA now. I think we reported that they were gonna fly that, so we have some new marketing pictures and videos. They're really good and show that site and other sites in a graded state. We've seen quite a few new projects come through. It's those, I joke, those every 4 to 8 year projects where they're all clean energy or battery technology, and on paper they're all $100 million projects or $500 million projects. Jody submitted an interesting RFI for one the other day, and in their second sentence of their first paragraph, this is a great project, hundreds of jobs. Can you help us find $100 million to do it? So we'll see a lot of those projects the next few years. And our comments usually, if we had $100 million, we wouldn't be down here at 7:30 in the morning. We'd find something else to do. So, if these companies can't function without everybody else's money, it's probably not a viable company that's going to be in the community long term. So we have to be skeptical of those and take a close look at those as they go. On the good news on the companies we do have, we've got about 8 expansions going right now. We're at 450,775 committed jobs, and those are committed over the next 3 to 5 years. We're working with another existing company in town that's looking at another large expansion. So growth is looking really good. The challenge, like anybody hears, is you drive through town and you see the signs, the workforce is slim. I think as long as we incentivize people not to go to work, it's gonna stay slim. As long as we continue to pay people additional unemployment wages, while there's thousands of jobs out there, we're gonna struggle. There's no doubt. So, a few of the projects we've had, they've done some labor studies on our area, and they say, compared to the country, we still look very good. Within the region, we've had some new numbers ran, and our 45, 30-mile population numbers and workforce numbers are stronger than we ever thought. It's just getting those people back into the workforce, into the system. So I think you see it every day. I don't have Facebook, but I hear from other people that do, and They say the comments are pretty standard. You know, people will apply for a job, just tell, you know, what the Department of Labor calls it on their conference calls is dialing for dollars. You have to apply for the job, but you don't have to show up for the interview. So once somebody's applied, they've dialed for dollars, they qualify. They don't show up for an interview, or if they do, they tell the people will likely be available in September when extended unemployment runs out. So you hear that pretty commonly right now, that, you know, almost anyone that's applied, they won't accept a position until at least September. So
September's when that expires.
hopefully, I doubt it though, they'll keep extending it.
Huh?
They'll keep extending it. September is best case scenario. But, so that'll be a challenge, you know, getting people, and it hurts, I wanna say it hurts more of our retailers and our restaurants, and you notice that in the service and what you're getting. Most of our manufacturers, you know, people talk about a $15 minimum wage. It's hard to go into a manufacturer here and not get $15 an hour. You know, those guys are paying, in most part, above that. Even Walmart starting people $14, $15 an hour as a night stalker. So there's plenty of money out there if people are willing to work. It's just, it's gonna get tough when it comes hiring time and they've shown that long gap on a resume. Most of my manufacturers have said, we know who we won't hire. You know, if people have been out of work for a year and we see they've been on the unemployment system for a year, we know they're just milking off the system and they're not a hireable employee for us. So that'll be a challenge as we continue to look at the next year going forward. That is all I have.
Any questions? Anybody? Any suggestions? Okay. All right, any other business coming before the group?
We adjourn.
It's just a move, we adjourn. Second?
Second.
We're so